we call on the founder of Cred. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Kunal Shah.
Hello, everybody. How many of you are founders? Please raise your hand. How many of you are product managers? How many of you have tried Cred? Okay, not bad. Thank you. Thank you so much. I thought that it's important to make this a lot more interactive and not just give general gyan. I give general gyan on social media all the time, so make it more pointed. I thought I will just kind of make some controversial statements. And kind of try to explain those points through that lens. First is, there was a time where people would say, this company is a technology company. And that was relevant, but now, I don't know if any company can not be a technology company. In fact, I get really scared of companies that still have an IT department. Because if you are not technology first, in today's world, no matter what your business is, you cannot really survive. And the controversial thing in my view, according to me, is that there is no such thing as fintech industry. I think every industry is somewhat becoming a fintech industry. I got a lot of love on Twitter when I used the word things like lending is a feature and not a product. I think slowly but surely everything is becoming that. I believe that systematically profit pools are moving away from products that provide convenience because technology makes it extremely easy to provide convenience. And I don't think that margins will exist in categories that are doing very basic stuff. I think money will move more in the direction of hope, risk, intangible benefits, and so on and so forth. I think it's impossible to expect to make money by being a payments player. And if you've seen systematically the margins have disappeared, I think the gravity of zero is extremely strong. So anybody who's hoping that they will survive this, they probably don't have a lot of time. And I think systematically, world over, money from that is disappearing and you need to provide other things. I also believe that systematically SaaS companies across the globe are going to become less profitable and they will eventually move into business models which have things like fintech in it. Imagine a payroll company that is free but makes money on lending. It doesn't sound as absurd anymore. What is also happening is, I was in China a few weeks ago and I observed a very interesting trend. The content companies, like the YouTube equivalent of China, they are saying lending is an advertisement product. That was obviously scary to listen to. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we have a spot. It costs X dollars per CPM. Now, if you can make 2X by providing lending from the same spot, now the ad teams are running lending. So top 25 companies in China which are in anything to do with technology, they are all actively in the business of fintech. The food delivery companies, the flight OTAs, content companies, gaming companies. Now that is where I'm saying that I don't know if a fintech conference will sound as absurd like a technology conference or an e-commerce conference anymore, because it's getting merged. I'll give you another example from history. Many years ago, English alphabet did not have the current numerals like 1, 2, 3. It had the Roman numerals, which was not very efficient. So a lot of people in the past, the traders, started using the Arabic numerals, which was the 1, 2, 3, 4 that they have got from India, in doing their hisab. So what happened is they would communicate in English, but they would write in Arabic numerals and do the hisab. So some product manager of English realized that we are losing customers to Arabic, and they just copied that exact same thing and made that into a feature in English. And then Arabic numerals died because English copied a feature which has a much higher distribution. I think platforms that have a higher distribution and higher trust are systematically converting products into features. And that is happening consistently. If you have any doubt, ask anybody who's above 40 and ask them to look at the smartphone, and they'll say, yeah, icon used to be a real product before. A calculator or a camera or many, many things that we have got now in our smartphone, and we just take it for granted saying that, this is no big deal. That used to be a real thing. Is it hard to imagine that food delivery will make people look stupid saying that we used to have kitchens in our home at one point of time? It is not hard to imagine. It is not very hard to imagine. It might happen, right? And that is happening because like people have figured out, like for example, if you bring an American to India and you say, "Hamare ghar mein geyser hai," they will laugh at it because the whole country gets hot water in tap. What I'm trying to tell you through this is that across the industry, everything is getting merged. Anybody who says you are fintech or you are in commerce and this, the lines are blurred. Who knows what is the labels don't make any sense anymore. One more thing that is happening is the concentration on the smartphone as a device and all the services coming over there has made the world into a superconductor, right? And what are the superconductors? Superconductor is where the atoms are nicely placed next to each other and therefore seamlessly current can flow. I think the whole world has become like a superconductor, right? Like, how many of you knew about the news of demonetization next morning? Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? That's all. It spread that fast that everybody knew about it. Even if you were mostly sleeping, you were probably not going to miss that news. That is how, by the way, that's how the jokes are also spreading. If you make a good joke or a good meme, it spreads as fast. I think we are living in a world where technology is getting diffused to many people in a way that we cannot imagine as a speed, and therefore, consistently, you are observing an interesting thing where it's changing things very, very fast, right? I'll give you a small example of what's probably going to happen. Let's say WhatsApp payments is going through its own struggle of getting regulatory approval or whatever, but if anybody has tried WhatsApp payments, right, it is magical, it works. Now you can defend it. Any company that has 400 million DAU, and everybody is there, and by the way, most likely we ask, paisa bhej dena, or all these conversations are done over there, you're most likely to use that feature over there, right? There was a time when photo sharing and video sharing did not exist in WhatsApp. And we used to all use different methods to send that. WhatsApp did not have video calling or audio calling. We used to use other features, right? How many of us are naturally like just clicking on the phone button and just speaking on data, even though we can do a regular phone? We don't even think about the difference that we are using a VoIP or we are using normal data. And I think if you can see that, like the platforms that have higher volumes of customers are sucking all the use cases. I'll give you another example. Any platform that has highest DAUs will suck all the users and therefore all the features. Let's take an example of that in a different way. And I'll tell you why it does that. Frequency creates trust. any product that you use multiple times a day, multiple times a week, you're likely to trust it more, because trust comes from familiarity. The word familiarity comes from family. Family comes from watching them many number of times. They don't do any harm to you. You trust them. And this is a very biological thing. Repetition also works in ads. When you have rhyming words or rhyming sentences, they are more trustworthy for us, right? Whenever a political slogan has a rhyming sentence, it creates more trust in us. It's a very biological phenomenon of how frequency creates trust. And there's an older phenomenon. That there was a time when like India did not have so many temples, and temple used to be the highest DAU product at one point of time, right? So everybody would go every day over there, and all the shops that were around temple obviously did more monetization compared to the shops that were not around the temple. So the earliest markets arrived around religious places. Now, all the businessmen that were not around the temple realized that this is not fair. We are not getting as much as monetization as the other guys. So what did they do? They made own temples to get their own DAU. But it was possible to do that kind of stuff before because money was not equally distributed. Now if somebody makes like super awesome Wi-Fi speed temple today, you will not be able to compete with them, and they'll suck all the DAUs and they can add all the features around that. I'm giving a temple analogy to understand that markets have always worked in the same fashion, right? And that is exactly what is going to happen around this as well. Talking about things that is important to note and kind of thesis behind how CRED came about is that what you'll notice is that trust is one of the most important things how many countries became prosperous. In fact, in 1972, Dr. Arrow won a Nobel Prize by proving a theory saying that any country that has low trust will always have low prosperity, right? And let me explain what is low trust. You would give demand draft instead of doing check. You're doing prepaid instead of doing postpaid. You were saying, I will give my car for servicing, but I will empty the fuel tank. I will check the total of the bill before paying the bill at a restaurant. That's all signs of mistrust, right? Just to give you a point, like number of people in jail per capita in US versus India is probably 10x, 15x, right? In fact, number of new jails after British in this country have not been much also. Now, why am I saying that? That we do not have penalties for bad actors, right? And we are living in a world where good actors, if they are not rewarded, they are most likely to feel cheated in this country and they would rather leave. कि इधर कुछ नहीं हो सकता, right? So what we are doing is that creating a platform where move a lot of high quality customers that people would want to reward and get them recognized so that they are able to get a lot more benefits. In India, we do not have preferential pricing based on good and bad behavior in insurance. We don't have good and bad pricing based on different things. In the US, it's quite common. In fact, in the US, you cannot even rent an apartment without having a good credit score. And therefore, people care a lot about that. I think unless we do that, we'll not be able to make an impact around this. Now, what we are building, a lot of people saying it's fintech, but I don't know how it is fintech. If you are trying to go into the problem of trust, there's no such thing called as trust tech, but I'm into the business of trust tech. If you can do trust, I can do commerce, I can do fintech, I can do lending, I can think about all of these possibilities, but the important thing is that one needs to kind of build on top of that. One more trend that is also happening is while all the wallets are becoming popular, one of the trends that is missing and people don't talk about enough is that in China also, everybody talks about Alipay and VPay and all of these things, QR codes, but 70% of all those transactions in the back have a card, which is the nuance that nobody talks about. And I think if you observe, credit card massively exploded in the last 7-8 years in China as well, right? MasterCard, Amex, Visa are at all-time high on their market cap right now. So ubiquity becomes quite normal. And once something becomes a standard, it's hard to change. I'll explain the standard thing in a slightly different way. Think about us. If this conference was done in China, which language the speaker will be speaking in? Chinese. But why am I speaking in English? Because all of you think that we belong to one country, but we are not one country. We are 25 countries merged into one country with different languages we speak at home. We have different cuisines, we have different cultures, sometimes even different festivals. When you have a country as diverse as that, you need a neutral platform. A neutral platform is English. No, a lot of people don't realize that, but the way we all play a common sport is cricket, which is also neutral, not from India. Our neutral beverage, tea, is not from India. I have some more bad news. The neutral food we order in our office when there's a party, it's pizza, not from India. Anybody who wants to say biryani is not from India. Anybody who wants to say samosa, not from India. Bad news, even khichdi is not from India. Now, why am I saying this? Anything that creates a neutral platform for multiple people to participate becomes the standard and the norm. And in a way, the rails that have been set by, let's say, someone like Master Visa are kind of going to be more ubiquitous. And while we'll have all these moments of creating things like QR, if the consumer naturally wants to use, let's say, a credit card, they will continue to use that too, right? So it's no surprise that the largest merchant now on credit cards is all the wallet companies by a big margin. Now, what I'm trying to tell you through this is that the way standards operate is a lot more complex, and we need to understand how they function. And if you don't understand and pay attention to those details, you might think that you are building X, Y, Z, but you might end up actually building something that is going to be not relevant in a few years from now. Couple of more points. I think these labels like you are a retailer, you are a bank, you are an NBFC, you are a payment gateway, I think these lines don't make, these labels don't make any sense anymore, right? They are all getting blurred into each other, and at a rate faster than we cannot imagine. I'll give you a small example from what I observed in China. There are lots of platforms. I'll give you a story. I was in China once, and I was in this cab ride. Obviously, I'm not able to speak the language. Somehow convinced him that I need to go to this hotel. And the guy is obviously riding very, very fast. This is in Hangzhou. And he takes out his phone. And normally what we do is do WhatsApp and stuff. But he did something else. He just took out his phone, applied for a loan while he's driving at full speed. And then he's doing this, and then an interesting phase comes where he has to do face verification. So he switched on lights of the car, and he's doing this constantly. There is a facial recognition API available in China that people can use to give loans. And automatically, the guy was instantly approved the loan, all of that. But the entire procedure was less than 1 minute while he was driving the car. And I was just amazed at this whole thing, that one could get that kind of facility and get that done in a time. And by the way, this is, I would say, this is not even the Didi driver. This was a regular airport driver, which is not usually the lesser tech-savvy people. They could just do that. And we are leading to a world where a lot of people, at least the youngsters, do not have the same fear of technology as a lot of the older people have. I have a two-way to know which customer is scared of technology and not. Anybody who uses the phone with one finger outside and touches it like this is scared of technology. You know the type of people I'm talking about. And it's not only by age. It's just the personality. And why do they do that? They keep the finger outside because they don't want to click anything by mistake. But there's a generation which is doing this, and they'll go back or delete, right? I call it the Ungli generation. They don't fear clicking the wrong button because you can unsend something, you can undo something, you can delete something and move on, and you're not scared of that. I don't think we have built products for that generation, right? And by the way, I have always known this beautiful thing that I don't know any previous generation that thought the next generation is better. They always think the next generation is gone, like it's bad. But if you look at data, systematically, every single human generation is disproportionately smarter than the previous generation. Don't use that data with your parents, it will not work. They will tell you, oh, you use the phone all the time, you have screen time. Nobody cares. People are just happy doing Instagram. They will do what they want to do. Now we can put all these measures and it says it's not good, but it's a new generation, right? There was a time, maybe the generation just before the current generation, they should be like, oh, why do you send SMS with like shorter alphabets? It's more efficient, right? I remember asking my niece that time, she was like 8, 10-year-old. I was like, why do you like, what do you do with the extra time? This was a very stupid question, now I think about it. I asked that, what do you do with the extra time that you get by not typing that one alphabet? I thought it was a very smart question. And she replied saying that, I just watch a video. And I was like, I thought it was a sarcastic, good question, and like she did not. She's like, why do I need to waste time typing one extra alphabet? I think we are dealing with that generation and dealing with the concerns of security from a generation. For them, everything is bad. I'm sure the generation before me felt TV was extremely bad. Guys, I'm very old. I'm 39. I remember when I was in college, first year, somebody walked up to me and told me, Kunal, Terminator 2 released over here, but in the US, Terminator 6 has released. And I believed him because there was no internet to verify. A lot of youngsters will not even understand what I'm talking about. And we are now dealing with a generation where we are trying to put this regulatory thing on top of that. For example, I sometimes wonder that we have second factor authentication for everything. But should it be not there for less than 2,000 rupees transaction? And kind of a normal question to ask. But I can do opt out of DND, but I can't opt out of second factor because we've been told this is safe for you. Right? This is very interesting too, from a very analogous to this is that I remember a friend of mine who came from US asked me this question that, why do you have a separate compartment for ladies? And I'm like, I don't know, safety, I said. He's like, why are they not safe in the regular compartments? And obviously I had no answer, so then she said, if there is problematic people, why don't you just punish them? But instead of punishing few people who caused trouble, what we have done is made a separate compartment, which is not very efficient. And we are living with that. We have a separate queue at the airport. And these are not very wise choices for a country that is growing rapidly. And we are proud of the system like that, whereas in the progressive world, that has all disappeared. And we are stuck on this cultural nuance, right? The reason I'm talking about is that we are living in a world where most youngsters are global citizens. They watch a show on Netflix. They probably speak the same language as what is spoken by a lot of global youngsters. But we are giving them products which do not reflect their values or their systems. So we are living in a world where we have this opportunity to create and make a big difference. Money is a sensitive topic. What I have observed is that imagine trying to convince a 12-year-old that it's a great idea to go to the branch of a bank. Like, they will say, what exactly will I do over there, like, which I cannot do on an app? And by the way, that generation is going to be a decision-making generation in some time. The joke I make is that every house has a chief technology officer now, and that person is usually under 14. If you are not building for that CTO, most likely that person is already doing bill payments of the house, transfers of the house, assigned responsibilities to do all sorts of technology-related tasks. Ye order kar lo. ये ticket book कर लो. If you're not building for that generation, you will say, oh, but my customer looks like he's 45-year-old. No. Most likely, he's asked somebody in the family to do that transaction for them. And if you ask any teenager, they will tell you they are tired of these instructions. ये मेरा ये book कर लो, ये करवा लो, right? And we are not building for that, right? I think we need to take that direction. Just one final point, and I'll just kind of open it up. Oh, I'm over time. Shit, sorry. One final note is that India is a country, because of these neutral platforms, global players are likely to be trusted more than Indian players. It's a very cultural nuance. You may do any nationalism, but all of us want to work in an MNC. All of us want to go on vacation abroad, right? And want to buy every brand. You know, all Indian brands have a Western name. All the brands that you think are all international brands are not international brands. All the apartments in Gurgaon are Western names. So in that world, building businesses in India is not that easy. So if you think that just because I'll play the nationalistic flag and say made in India, it will not be enough. You need to create really, really good products. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much. Should I take questions? Maybe a few questions. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. No questions. Somebody on that side. You want to scream your question? Yeah, perfect. Perfect question. Just the question I was expecting. First of all, if you will believe in American propaganda about how different countries are doing good or bad things and see it from that lens, let me ask you a question. Have you been to China, sir? Okay. It's amazing to imagine those extreme scenarios of Black Mirror and saying that you are creating this society that will divide itself. Please understand, historically, even religion did this. If you do this, you go to heaven. Otherwise, you go to hell. I don't think it created any dystopia. It only made humans a lot more conscious about what their behavior is all about. But I think the extremism that we are living in right now, and by the way, it's how do you get likes on social media? You have to be either witty, pretty, or outraged about something. And the thing is, we don't understand that historically, you cannot punish people at large scale, right? Imagine trying to put people behind bars in this country for piracy. Is it bad? It's probably more bad than anything else that we are doing, but the thing is that if we take these extreme views and not understand the nuance, and actually in this today's world, we have lost the culture of nuance. We have these extreme views because it gets us likes. So my view is that research topics on how good behavior and bad behavior is incentivized to create nations, create societies, create religion, and if you can just identify objectively, you decide how do you identify trust. I cannot identify and judge people by saying, are you good in a relationship or bad in a relationship? You don't know what is good, bad. It's too much context lost behind. Like you can decide, did you pay the bill on time? Did you meet your due date? Like that's an objective behavior that has been established across the world. And I think that's an interesting framework or easier framework to go with. Did I answer your question? Thanks. One more question. There.
This is about cred. So generally, when somebody charging a credit card, they'll do a $1 rupee authorization. When I use cred, they'll do a deposit. So how did that idea came?
Or depositing 1 rupee instead of charging 1 rupee?
Yes.
It's very simple. I believe trust works when you trust first. Am I making sense? For example, everybody in cred is paid salary first of the month, not end of the month. And we have no notice periods. Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.